See you.
John, what are you looking to build on from last year?
Yeah, there's a lot to build on from last year. I think, most importantly in my personal game, my man technique, just to clean stuff up from a press man perspective and off man. But also getting bigger, faster, stronger. I know that's a cliche saying, but it's the truth. With extra strength, speed, you can capitalize on the opportunities that, you were right there last year, but, maybe just didn't have that little extra step, which also that goes into film study as well. But yeah, just to, building up those things are the biggest main focus for me right now.
You're one of the beneficiaries of the 5-5 now, where you get an extra year back after playing core special teams at Iowa. Have you thought about that at all as you try to figure out what the next 6, 12, 18 months look like?
Yeah, I mean, I heard about that ruling that came out, but yeah, I'd say just focus on right now, focus on fall camp, productive fall camp, building our defense, building our team just for this upcoming season.
You've been attached probably at the hip with Aiden West since he's been here in January. What have you learned about him, and what are his greatest strengths as a corner?
Yeah, he's a football junkie. He's a sponge. He loves the game. He's just been very big in the film room. Always getting extra work. Just kind of asking questions. The in and out of what you see here from different formations. Always asking questions in the meeting room. And not to mention all that, he's a really good football player too. Very good technique. And a very smart kid. Definitely well above his age. I'm always asking him, dude, I forget you're still a freshman. You know what I mean? But he's a great player. No, he's really good. So he'll be very good for us.
A year ago, you come in, everything's kind of new as a transfer. Going into your second fall camp here with Minnesota, how do you feel things are different? Has it slowed down for you?
Yeah, I think with any experience comes the game to slow down just a tad bit. But in terms of mentality and focus, no, because last year I come in, I had something to prove, and I had to, prove myself to everybody. But that's still my mentality, right? Like I can't let myself go to a certain, I did this, I started last year. None of that. You got to earn, rents due every day, and you got to continue to earn that every single day. So in terms of mentality, I'm still focused every day, and just trying to prove myself to myself every day.
Are there lessons that you learned that you're now imparting on Aiden as he's a first-year transfer guy?
Yeah. Everything just as you're a younger player, everything just looks way faster than it actually is, right? Like all these concepts and different releases all look way different than they actually are. At the end of the day, like a receiver has to go left or right. You know what I'm saying? And based off where he goes, there's only a few routes out of that release that he can actually do. So kind of implementing that in your mindset and just your game plan when you sit up to the line of scrimmage or whatever formation that you're in or coverage that you're in, kind of maintaining that mindset, just allows you to slow the game down a lot.
We saw Aiden Goosby start a couple games next to you in Wisconsin in the bowl game. How have you seen him kind of embrace his jack of all trades role, where he may not know if he, by the end of fall camp, if he's a corner, nickel, safety? How have you seen him kind of just embrace whatever's thrown at me, I'm going to just take it and go?
Yeah. I mean, you said it best. He's a jack of all trades. He's, he can do, play various positions. I think that really helps him right now and for the next level as well. So I think he's embraced it, with welcoming arms. The fact that you can have a player that plays corner, not boundary, but field, not strong, but free, and also nickel, like playing the inside and slot, that's a hard thing to do. You got to be able to hit, cover, you got to be fast, and something that you could do at his, for Goosby right now, that's just huge. I think he's, very, very well fit for that role.
John, it was cool watching how you guys were able to roll zones last year. You were a big part of that, just being able to roll into the deep path as a corner when you're doing that. How do you develop that feel for space and just get into the right path?
Yeah, well, I played safety in high school, and that was kind of like my first, my dad was safety at mine, Ohio. So that was, as a kid, that was definitely, hey, you can play receiver, but let me show you what safety is. You know what I mean? So he kind of bestowed that upon me as a young age, and I played that all in high school. So I kind of had a feel for, knowing where the ball's going without it actually being thrown. Just kind of like that little instinctual, instinct that you have. And so when I get back there, it's a nice feeling again. You're like, oh man, this is nice, being able to fit the run fast and playing over the half. So yeah, it's been great, and it's really been good for me. Just just playing all different positions in defense, you know, kind of getting the feel for safety, you know, nickel, some of the nickel reps in the spring, and then corner as well, you know, so kind of getting the feel for all different positions.
How important is the communication and coordination? Because you got a lot of guys moving into different zones. Like you got to be on the same page, or it doesn't go very well.
Yeah, it's everything. Communication is everything. You know, the big thing that we preach here is crazy communication. Like, almost like, wow, like these guys are kind of like all over. You know, it's just a lot. You know, but that's what we emphasize, because with crazy communication, everyone's for sure going to be on the same page. You know what I mean? There's not going to be a D lineman that didn't hear from the free safety give a call, or the field corner not hear, you know, the stand linebacker, the nickel, you know, make a check to him. You know, so like with our crazy communication, especially on the field, I mean, we have a bunch of big road games this year with over 100,000 people. You know, so we like to, you know, especially in the off season, you know, simulate that with loud noise and just be able to communicate to each other, especially on the defense and offense side of the ball.
John, when you look back at your first year as starter, what did you see? This is an area of improvement I need to really work on. What did you see out of your game that you need to step up a little bit?
Yeah, you know, I think this might be, you know, just a cliche statement, but I think a lot of things in my game I think were good, but to be the best version of myself as a player, they need to be great, you know. And like I touched on, the big was man technique, right? Off man, press man, and even in my zone, I saw little weaknesses here and there throughout the games, throughout the season that went on. You know, so it was big for me to, you know, take a step back, and my coaches were like, hey, listen, you know, you had a okay, decent season, but you need to do this, and like a whole page of things. And I was like, wow, this is, you know, like not a lot of people would do that, right? And it's very humbling to me, and it's very good for my coaches that my coaches are, you know, very on me about, you know, things that I have to improve on, and you know, to give me that opportunity, it's really good. So yeah.
I think people forget you were a later arrival last year. Like, how fast did you have to pick up the defense? And how'd you go about?
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, something Coach Fleck says all the time is, you know, you get out of what you put into it. So, you know, especially arriving at, you know, in the summer, in late May, you know, the playbook there was a lot, you know, so I had to be hearing, you know, sun up to sundown every day. But that's what I wanted to do. You know, I love this game, and I love learning different, you know, schemes and, you know, techniques and, you know, whatever coverage it may be. You know, so it was a fun thing for me. I love doing it, but it took a lot of hard work. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was very hard, but it was well worth it, and I'm super glad that I did it. Glad to be here as well.
Given that you started your career at Iowa, what would it mean to you to be able to bring Floyd to Minneapolis?
Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, it obviously a great opportunity to play them again. You know, play some of my former teammates, but honestly, we're just focused on fall camp right now and be able to, you know, embark on our season, 2026 season, and focus on fall camp and then Easter Illinois.
How does last year's game against Iowa stick with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like any other game. You know, we had a game that, you know, either was won or lost. There's a lot of things to take from it, you know, and whether that be good or bad, you know, we got to learn from those mistakes and, you know, take those mistakes, learn from our past to create our future. You know, and I think, you know, after every loss or win, we responded in a good way. You know, so take that from last year and implement it to this year, and, you know, we're gonna be just fine doing that.
Whether it's been in a game or in practice, we've seen you exchange pleasantries with receivers.
Yeah.
And it's almost the game within the game between a corner and a receiver. You guys go against each other 45, 50, 60 snaps. Is that one area of being a corner that with your personality, you love to just know that from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, we're all both going to tell each other how we feel about one another?
Yeah.
But it's the competitive nature.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. You know, I tell him how great of a receiver he is, how good he looks. You know, like, you know, tell him how, you know, compliment him all the time. You know, as you probably expect. But yeah, you know, it's obviously, like you said, it's game within the game. You know, everything's mental warfare, and you know, just got to keep it one ear out the other. And you know, it's a part of the game that's very unique. And you get definitely different personalities, you know, from game to game, from practice to practice. You know, depending how everybody's feeling, but it's great. It's just it's a love for the game. It's very unique. So I definitely enjoy it a lot.
What makes Noah Jennings and Hayden Moore difficult to go against?
Well, you know, they're both, I would say, different players. Noah's very, you know, electric and twitchy type of receiver, right? He gets on your toes fast and then makes decisions, and then right when you think you have him, you know what I mean? And Hayden is just very powerful, you know, a very big vertical threat. So is Noah. And, you know, they're totally two different players, but I think they bring definitely, you know, a unique style to our offense. And, you know, they're both vertical threats, but they also can sit down and snap to that, right? And Hayden comes in here, and he's a true freshman. And, you know, he's telling everybody what he's going to do. And he did it, you know? So, and it's just the start for him. So as long as he can keep improving on that, you know, as well as Noah, I think we'll be very good.
Time for a couple more for John.
As a returning player, how do you get new people adapted to the culture here at the university?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think you just spread it on them, you know, as day one, like the day they get in here. Hey, listen, nice to meet you. This is how things are done here. This is how we do things. You know, and that's come from the top down, you know, from Coach Fleck all the way down to us and then the rest of the players on the team. You know, so I think it's the more that it's, you know, bought into just by the players, because, you know, a player-led team is where, you know, the great, really good teams stick out, right? And, you know, as players, you know, having that culture, you know, reinforced on people and, you know, just reminded all the time, because, you know, you never know what people go through, you know, their past life or, you know, the school that they came from. You know, so continue to continue to do that. It's a really good fit for our players.
Anything else for John? All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.